I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. We have a really interesting show today that I don't think we've done before, but it's really neat to be able to showcase a landowner.
Yes, I'm really excited too. Glad to be with you today, Renee. Beautiful day here in Lexington, Kentucky.
Day before the 4th.
I know, a little bit warmer than has been, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody's geared up for a great holiday. But yeah, I'm really excited about today's show.
Mm-hmm.
We get to honor and recognize a forest steward, and we'll hear more about what that forest steward
means.
Actually, it's Forest Steward of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll learn a little bit more about that because we have Miss Pam Snyder, who is one of the leaders of the Kentucky Division of Forestry, and she oversees that program amongst many others. But she'll be telling us a little bit more about that program and really the significance of that here in a minute. And then we have our, reoccurring every week almost guest, Dr. Ellen Crocker, who is amazing.
Awesome.
Yes, I know, our hero, right?
Yes.
In many ways. She's going to be talking about a really pretty serious invasive tree that we have here in Kentucky. And maybe you may not be aware of it, but if you are, you're going to get some more depth on it too.
Yeah. It could be confused for something else too if you're not familiar with it.
A couple of other species that have real similarity to it. So it'd be really interesting. But we're excited you all chose to be with us today. Thank you so much. If you have questions for either of our presenters, you can use the chat function if you're on Zoom. If you're on YouTube or you're a podcast listener, please use email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can respond that way. But again, glad to be here, Renee. Glad to be with you. Glad to have our guests on.
Awesome.
It's a great day before we celebrate the country's independence.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Pam, if you want to turn your camera on.
Greetings.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well.
I know you sent me this video link and you said, hey, I'm really excited to get this on the show. And I was like, okay, let's do it tomorrow. So we're really excited to be running this. Tell us a little bit about
teaser
about what's going to see.
Well, one of the things that we do within the Forest Stewardship Program within the division is we have found an awards process to nominate our certified Kentucky Forest Stewards. So I think you're going to be able to see one of those landowners today in the video. So let's go ahead and proceed.
Awesome. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Pam. We'll get that rolling. We'll go ahead and stop our video and we'll get it shared. Where's that share? Stop that. Sorry, folks. Yeah.
Don't you just love it when Zoom changes the controls on you?
That's okay.
We got it going.
We got you. Try to get rid of these little meeting controls here. All right, folks. So please enjoy this great video.
Our stewardship program, it's open to any forest landowner in the state. It is a free service with no obligations. Basically, it gives us a chance to have a forester meet with that landowner and discuss what their overall goals are for managing the property.
My name's Vernon Ramey, and we're at McGlone Creek. We inherited this property about 10 years ago. It's an excellent place to just come over here and relax. We've got this property mainly just to use for recreation, but we wanted to take care of the property and do timber stand improvement, and hopefully one day the timber and everything will be quite valuable for our grandchildren. When I first started working with the Division of Forestry, I sat down with a forester and I wrote up what my goals were as far as for the property. A lot of that centered around improving the forest, but also I was very interested in the wildlife, and the two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, if you do these timber stand improvements, they always seem to help the wildlife.
In the late 1990s, Vernon filled out a forest stewardship application, and I came out and looked at his property in Greenham County. And at that time, he was working a lot, and he did a lot of work with his job, but he was wanting to implement forest practices. He became more and more active and ended up being one of the best landowners that we've worked with during my career.
So that initial walkthrough, what I noticed, he's got a really good stand of native hardwood timber here. There were two invasive species in particular that stood out that were starting to try to take hold out here on the forest. One was called Tree of Heaven, and the other is multiflora rose.
I learned that there's a lot of different invasive species that are really detrimental to the forest here. We started hacking and spraying on them, and sometimes just doing foliar sprays to take care of these invasive species.
So today we're going to present Mr. Ramey with the Outstanding Forest Steward of the Year award, just for all his efforts that he's put in over the years on both of his properties.
I was impressed with, as I was looking at the nominees for the award, to see the type of spokesperson that Mr. Ramey could be.
He's just an outstanding landowner overall.
It's incredible to have a single property owner work hard to improve their own land, but our forests are connected here in Kentucky, and so when a landowner really reaches out to others and encourages them to improve their forests, then that's when our impact can really be maximized, and we can really see a lot of improvement in our forests as a whole in Kentucky.
So we're here in Carter County, Kentucky today, up McGlone Creek, and I've got with us Mr. Ramey, and we're here to congratulate him on all the hard work and effort that he's put in to managing not only his Carter County farm, but his Greenup County farm as well. He's just stood out as a good steward of the land, and just want to congratulate him and present him the 2023 Outstanding Forest Steward of the Year award. So, Mr. Ramey, congratulations.
Thank you, Bill. I can't say enough for all the work you've done helping me to improve my properties. It's been a pleasure working with you, and also Floyd Willis and the folks into the NRCS office.
You know, that was really, really neat. It's just one of those things that it helps the woodland owners, helps, and it's just neat to be able to see them get something for their accomplishments that they have done, I love it.
Yeah, great job, Pam, on that video, and big shout out to the whole team who put that together. It was nice seeing some familiar faces on the video as well. Tell us a little bit more about that, how that really came about.
How it comes about is through the National Forest Stewardship Program rules, we will recognize one of our certified Kentucky Forest Stewards. So a landowner is eligible as long as they have a forest stewardship plan on their property and that they've been a certified forest steward for at least a period of 3 years. And so they have to be actively implementing their forest stewardship plan, and then a division forester will actually nominate them. And so what we do is we have 6 branch offices across the state. So it becomes a statewide competition at that point. And so then in order to get up to the overall Forest Steward of the Year for Kentucky, all the 6 nominations are reviewed by a panel that has representation from a lot of our sister agencies like Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and also 2 representatives from the Division of Forestry. And sometimes we also have representation from the Office of Surface Mining, and we have representation from UK Department of Forestry. So there again, it reinforces all the partnerships that go on. So once the panel reviews all 6 nominations, then a recommendation is made. But in order to reach this level, like in the example of Mr. Ramey, he's been actively implementing his plans for 20 years. So, you know, that means he's been doing everything to be able to grow his hardwoods sustainably and, you know, combat the invasive species problems. But he was able to do that because he received NRCS funding through cost share programs. So again, there's all these interconnections and linkage of various programs and being able to provide technical assistance by the division's foresters. So that's how we want to recognize one of our landowners in Kentucky.
I think it's impressive, really. I
Very.
mean, you know, and I'm sitting here thinking, and certainly big congratulations to Mr. Ramey there, but there's a lot of forest stewards out there that are working, you know, on their own property. You know, right
Mhm.
now, you know, as we're talking, they're out there doing work on their property, improving it. And, you know, one thing that I think sometimes it might get lost is that when they make those improvements to their property, we all benefit,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Society
Mhm.
is better off because these woodlands
not
are
just them.
healthier and more
Yes.
productive than we otherwise would have been. So, you know, the program that you all run, Pam, over there is so important to the long-term viability of our woodlands here in Kentucky because almost all of our land is privately owned. So it's these private citizens, right, that own the land and they get to decide what happens. But fortunately, there's organizations like the Kentucky Division of Forestry, Fish and Wildlife, NRCS, and others, including us, who are really trying to help them be good stewards of that land. So, I mean, you all should be very proud of the work that you all do. It is so vital to Kentucky and to our nation.
Mhm.
And it's, you can simply get started by filling out a stewardship application, and that's all it takes.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think, I'm sorry.
Kind of explain a little bit. I know we're going to have something, a program on what a stewardship plan is. But explain a little bit what that is and kind of the details and what's involved with that.
What it actually is the division forester will actually walk the landowner's property with them, and they are talking about how they want to manage that property. They're determining the objectives, the management objectives for that forest land. And it could also include agricultural land as part of the process in developing this forest stewardship plan. In that process, the forester's taking inventory notes, and in their mind, they're looking at, oh, the landowner says they want to do rotational grazing over here. They want to be managing this area for Christmas tree farming. They want to be managing this area for white oak sustainability, and they want to be growing the highest quality white oak that they can. So all of that comes down to the forester using their technical knowledge and silvicultural methods that then get put into the forest stewardship plan where it's written out. And it's like an instructor's manual for the landowner. And the steps that they have to take in order to do those objectives. Sometimes they may have to do what we call forest stand improvement, and that's kind of like a thinning of their stands, or maybe they've got an old pasture field that they want to replant. So that's a reforestation project that could be done, you know, within their farm work. So again, it gives the landowner guidance on how to grow sustainably timber and other products that they may want to come off of their property.
So that thinning, kind of like just what you would do with a garden. You plant too many seeds and you're like, okay, I gotta get some of these out of here. You know, you got too many carrots, you gotta pull some, otherwise they're not gonna get bigger. You know, it's good the same with trees.
Get rid of the weeds. And
Exactly,
stuff,
exactly.
And like Mr. Ramey mentioned, you know, invasive species, well, that affects the region or the understory layer within a hardwood stand. So that could restrict the seedlings coming up. So you have to get rid of those invasive species in order to be able to manage the forestry stand sustainably for a long time.
I was going to follow up with you a little bit, Pam. You made I thought, a very important point that folks who aren't familiar with the program should really know about is that
Mhm.
it is so flexible as far as, whatever your objectives are for your property, that there's probably a good way that stewardship plan can incorporate those objectives, right, and help you move forward.
Yes.
So, you don't just have to be all about timber, all about Christmas trees,
No.
whatever, right?
You could be about wildlife,
Exactly.
and hunting leases and,
Yeah.
does that kind of stuff. And
Right.
that may not be the forester's technical expertise, but that's where the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, their wildlife biologists can come in and make recommendations within the stewardship plan also, depending on what the landowner wants to do.
And following along with that, I think it's important folks know that we all talk to each other, right? These organizations, we are partnering and supporting one another. So we want to help the landowners, right? And like you said, if it's not us or it's not you, we can find the appropriate agency or organization that can help you
Right.
get that work done on your
Correct.
own. So getting connected into this network is more than just really your forester, though, in many ways, right? Because it
Right,
opens up a
correct.
whole world of other technical service providers and others that are out there that can kind of work with you and help you care for your land.
Correct. And that could be the Natural Resource Conservation Service. That could be maybe your farm needs a farm number. And so that's a visit down to the Farm Service Agency. All of these things help get back to the linkage and the network that you were just mentioning.
Right. Go ahead.
How many acres do you have to actually do this?
You have to have at least 10 acres of forest land to be a certified forest steward and a stewardship plan.
Well, that leads to another follow-up question, Pam. We have a lot of viewers and listeners that may have a little less than 10 acres. Does the Division of Forestry do anything for those landowners with less than 10?
Yes, we actually do. We can write a forest management plan on their property instead of a forest stewardship. So it's just a smaller acreage plan is all it is.
Okay. So regardless, if you're a woodland owner, the Kentucky Division of Forestry can help support you somehow,
Yes.
right?
Somehow, or link you up to
With who can. Take advantage of it, folks.
Definitely.
And Pam, one of the things that I'm really excited about coming up here in a couple of weeks is we've got our first field session of our 2024 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course. And this is such a big partnership, and the Kentucky Division of Forestry is like front and center partner in this. So folks that have registered and are going to be coming to this will get a chance to meet some of these foresters and these other professionals and really kind of see how they can work together to support them on their own
Like
property.
that one-stop shop, everybody's there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
and
makes it nice.
I was going to say a quick shameless plug. If there's a few spots left in both of those field sessions,
There.
just a few. If you're really interested in getting out and joining us in the field to meet some of these professionals, sign up soon at ukforestry.org and we can get you in. But Pam, I really appreciate all the work you all do with this program and what you do for Kentucky. I know you've got a lot of other things under your kind of umbrella that you manage at the Kentucky Division of Forestry, including the Forest Inventory program, which is another amazing program. So thank you for all you've done for a long time for Kentucky, and you've been a great partner here to the University of Kentucky for many years. So I just wanted to kind of publicly really thank you and acknowledge you for all
You're
of your
welcome.
support
Definitely.
of woodland owners in Kentucky. You've done a great service to them. You really have.
I know
Well, we're already working on our 2024 Forest Steward of the Year nominees.
All right.
Okay, that's
It keeps
awesome.
going, doesn't
Just keeps
it?
going.
It keeps going.
I love it.
One thing, everybody that has land is just a small part of, Kentucky. And so how many acres does Kentucky actually have within it?
About 25 million, and about 12 million are
12 million is forested.
give or take a few 100,000.
And then, someone that has, your 10 acres, but you can still make an impact
Sure.
even if you only had 1 acre.
Sure, certainly.
No matter what you're
Yeah,
doing.
Yeah. And that's an important point. A lot of times, especially when we're thinking about invasive species, and we don't want to jump into Dr. Crocker's
Right.
too much. But what your neighbors do can have an impact on what happens on your property. So, we can all be good neighbors by being good stewards of our woodland
Sometimes
property.
the birds and the deer get
They can-
impact on
yeah.
what's on your
Yes.
property. Because I have stuff and I don't even have an acre on mine. And I'm like, what come from. So yeah, I get it. So well, thanks, Pam. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll look forward to 2024 being on here.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So Pam, again, keep up the great work over there, and a big shout out to all of our friends at the Kentucky Division of Forestry. What a great organization.
Definitely.
You're welcome. And thank you guys.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Oh,
All
very
right.
cool. Very cool. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Man, I love working with them. You know, that's one of the
Yeah.
pleasures of my job is getting to work with them. And some of those foresters like Bill Knott and Floyd Willis we saw there,
Yeah.
amazing foresters.
They
And, you know, and Kentucky is blessed to have so many great foresters out
Mhm.
there that really are dedicated and want to help landowners get the most from
They
their
really
property.
do. And you know, that's something that landowners really, we need to, if we don't drive home that enough, we need to, you know, that there is help for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to just do this alone,
That's
you know,
exactly
because
right.
it could be very overwhelming.
It
Just to, I don't even know where to start. Well, you know what? We can, there's people there to show you
How to
where
get
to start, depending on what your objectives are.
Right. And that's a big part of what we try to do here at UK in our department,
Mhm.
but also with this show is to try to promote and encourage and support a good stewardship of our woodland resources out there because they're really
Definitely.
important. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was funny in that video. We saw something, right? And then it made me think of Dr. Crocker. Yeah. So, Dr. Crocker, if you could join us now.
Wonderful. I heard that too and was like, yeah, I got it.
What
Not
a lead in,
only
right?
Yeah, I was,
is
we
this
both went.
person-
We were watching the video, goes, she's going to talk about that.
So they're an excellent example in many ways to, you know, landowners across the state. But the thing that they were dealing with, the particular invasive plant, one of them that they mentioned is the one we're talking about today, because
Yes.
I bet they're not the only ones dealing with it. A very common invasive problem across the state and beyond, and that's tree of heaven.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, and you would think it would be such a lovely tree. Right?
And I've heard, like, depending on what you do, you just make it mad, you know. So Dr. Crocker's here to tell us all about what to do, how to get rid of it, and what not to do to make it mad.
Yes, today we're going to be talking all about tree of heaven, which, as you mentioned, is a misnomer because it is not a heavenly tree. It is more of a headache tree. And, you know, we don't like it because it is fast growing. It produces abundant windblown seeds, and it can really quickly take over. And that's a problem if it's happening in your woods. Now, this is also incredibly common in urban areas, but it can definitely establish in woodland settings and outcompete the native species that you want to be seen instead. So today we're going to talk a little bit about tree of heaven, what it is, what it looks like, and how you can manage it. So what is tree of heaven? It goes by that name and some other names, including Atlantis or Atlantis altissima, and it's a rapid growing, early colonizing species. And outcompete our native species, especially on poor quality sites. In addition, it grows clonally, and because of that, you know, it's sending out roots. It can grow very densely in a thicket, and that can outgrow other species that you might want to be seeing and exclude native species that are going to be more valuable to you in your woods, especially following any kind of major disturbance like a timber harvest. In addition, those roots actually exude chemicals that can assist it in pushing out native plants and giving them a competitive advantage. And those seeds, they're traveling on the wind and they can reach areas. You're like, where did this come from? How did it get here? They can travel quite a ways. So wild tree of heaven is really widespread in the US and tolerates a wide range of habitats. In those forest sites, along edges, roadsides, disturbed areas, is typically where you could see it moving in. In Kentucky's woods, it's the biggest threat immediately following a harvest. If you've got tree of heaven in the area that are producing seeds, then they get to that disturbed ground first. they're going to be the things taking off and growing and taking the space and life of other species that you would prefer established there. So they're going to prevent the regeneration of one of these, the tree branch growing into bigger trees and outcompete those. You know, you will also see it all over other landscape areas, urban and suburban, lining railroad tracks, popping up along the side of the road, on the highway. Here's a picture of it growing out of the foundation of the front porch. While it prefers both sun areas, you can also see it in really shady spots. You can sit there and hang out and wait for the light to be right, or just continue to go and out some swim. So a little bit more about what it looks like if you're trying to identify this species. It can grow into a very large tree. So it could grow into a dominant canopy tree. You can see this one here is a pretty large individual, but they can get even bigger. I've seen some that are big diameter. Now, while the canopy, you're more likely to see a dense thicket of smaller trees growing that are all only connected to each other through their roots. The leaves of Tree of Heaven are really, really long. So I'm going to show this video, and this is one leaf made up of lots of little leaflets. So you can see these are the little leaflets of Tree of Heaven, and this is all one leaf. So a single leaf could be a foot to 4 feet long, and they're going to have these compounded leaflets that are opposite each other on that single leaf. Lots of these clear shapes of the leaflets on each leaf. We're talking about the leaves and leaflets of Tree of Heaven, and you can see here, and I'll show this video, these leaflets have these little dots at the base, or little lobes at the base of each leaflet with a little glandular dot or a bump on each. Here you can also see how they're a little lighter in color on the underside than they are on the upper surface, as well as this little bump right there on each one of those lobes. Another very distinctive thing about Tree of Heaven is that it stinks, literally. So if you find Tree of Heaven in your woods and you grab a branch, it's going to be really smelly. I think it smells like, I don't know, rancid peanut butter or something like that, something oily, but it has a very distinctive and unpleasant smell. Other things to look for, those individual shoots are covered with these little white dots called lenticels when they're small, and the leaf scars, so this little scar that's left by the leaf under the bud of that leaf, have this distinctive kind of triangular shape. The bark itself on those bigger trees is going to be smooth and gray. And here's kind of a smaller tree. You can see those little white lenticels developing and becoming smoother over time. So some tips on ID for the bark. And then it produces flowers, which are kind of green and aren't really noteworthy, but those develop into seeds. And so here's a cluster of these winged seed pods. In the summertime, they've got this really bright pink or neon green color that are distinctive, and you can pick them out from a distance, even using drones if you're flying your property to see what's going on that way. Those little papery seed sheaths will stick around even after the tree has lost its leaves, and can actually be used in the winter for identification. So here you can see a tree, it's lost all of its leaves because it's wintertime, but it's still got these little papery sheaths that are left over from the seeds on it, and can be helpful in determining what it is. Now, there's one other reason why you should be looking for and perhaps disliking a Tree of Heaven, and that's in addition to everything we just talked about in terms of the problem that they cause in our woods, and that is because they are the favorite host for the spotted lanternfly. So this is a spotted lanternfly larva, or a nymph right here, and you can see the little nymph is on a Tree of Heaven leaf. They really like Tree of Heaven, and if you have more of Tree of Heaven, you're likely to have more problems with spotted lanternfly down the road. Now, spotted lanternfly lanternfly has only been detected right now in a small pocket of Kentucky, but it's in a lot of other places, and it's likely to move, and we're likely to get more of it in the future. So not only do you not want tree of heaven, but you don't want spotted lanternfly, and controlling your tree of heaven can help you with your spotted lanternfly infestation down the road. This is especially important if you have a vineyard or orchard trees, because spotted lanternfly is thought that it's going to be a real problem in those areas. So there are some lookalikes, some other trees and bushes that can look a bit like tree of heaven. A few common lookalikes that I see a lot are sumac and walnut, our native black walnut and our native sumacs. They can look a lot like tree of heaven, especially because they both have these compound leaves, so a leaf with lots of leaflets on it, and they, at least sumac, can grow in these dense thickets. So you can imagine how you could confuse the two. While both of these have those compound leaves that can be quite long, they are both shorter than the leaves of tree of heaven, and the leaflets have teeth on their margins, so they're kind of serrated a little bit, unlike the smooth leaflets of tree of heaven, which are, you know, smooth, but then they have that little lobe at the base. There are also key differences in terms of the bark and the twigs and the fruit of each, and if you have questions about it, another easy way to distinguish them is to break off a twig, and if it smells truly terrible, my guess is that it is tree of heaven. So that's another important diagnostic tool. So when it comes to managing tree of heaven, sustainable management over time is going to require scouting for trees on and around your property, killing those mature trees that are producing seed to reduce the spread by seed, and then killing the smaller trees to prevent them from establishing and competing with your desirable native trees. In most woodlands, tree of heaven is going to be scattered or in small groups or thickets, and because it really readily root suckers and spreads through those roots, just cutting the trees down is not going to be effective, because then they're just going to send more shoots up, unless you're doing that really regularly. You're mowing it regularly, and pulling them up, unless those trees are really small and you can get the whole root system, is also not likely to be effective. Because of this, systemic herbicides are typically needed to ensure complete control of tree of heaven. So I just want to demonstrate that again, kind of showing that with some images from a really great video that Penn State University did online. You can check that out as well. But if you think of one tree of heaven, this individual tree that you might see below ground is connected through its root system to lots of other shoots and trees that are around. So if you cut down that one tree, it's still likely to continue growing, and now these little shoots are just going to take off and grow really vigorously. So you want to be looking at management practices that not only kill this one tree, but also everything that's connected to it. That can be really valuable for tree of heaven and anything that grows clonally like that. So in terms of common management techniques, if the trees are small and you can spray the leaves without contacting nearby desirable plants, you can use a foliar herbicide application. Foliar sprays are a good initial treatment of really dense infestations when you've got a lot of small, low growth. And herbicides that are commonly used in the forestry setting for this kind of thing would be glyphosate and triclopyr. And with any herbicide, pesticide use, always remember to follow the label. Not only is it there to keep you safe and to let you do the best job you can in your woods, but it is the law. So another very common herbicide application for tree of heaven, especially for those larger trees, is called hack and squirt. So where you cut into the tree and you apply more concentrated herbicide into those cuts. You can use it for trees that are going to be an inch in diameter and larger. So, you know, think of tree of heaven, some of those bigger trees. This is a really good approach. The reason for that is that it would kind of allow this tree to take up that herbicide and spread it through the root system. So it's going to be impacting all of the other little shoots and trees that are connected to it as well, hopefully. So not just that one stem, but others that are connected to it. So with this method, you're going to be spacing downward angled cuts with your hatchet evenly around the circumference of the tree, and then using herbicide directly into those cut areas. Commonly, there are different formulations that are used to this, but again, those with glyphosate and triclopyr. And you can see this person using the hatchet to make those cuts into the tree. You can get a hatchet with a really narrow blade or modify your hatchet so that it has a more narrow blade and cut into that easily. And then while this varies and you always want to follow the label, in general, you would make about 1 cut into that tree per inch diameter of the tree. So if the tree is bigger, you're going to be doing more cuts and squirting more herbicide into it. If you had, say, a 6-inch diameter tree, you might do 6 cuts evenly spaced around the tree, and then filling those with that herbicide solution. With Tree of Heaven, seasonality is really important in terms of management. And this is something that you would want to do in the mid to late summer to maximize the ability of that tree to then move that herbicide out to its roots and into other kind of parts of that thicket. There are other herbicides that are used for Tree of Heaven control, things like basal bark application, where you would spray around the base of a tree, kind of maybe 18 inches up down to the base, with a special herbicide formulation that's going to penetrate that bark, like a triclopyr ester and a basil oil, and you want to get entirely around that tree, as well as others. But again, I just want to emphasize that with Tree of Heaven, you can get a lot more bang for your buck if you're doing these treatments in the late summer to early fall. Other times of year, it's not going to be as effective. And then just a quick note that for a lot of different woody plants, a lot of different tree species, you might think of this approach, the cut stump approach, where you cut something down and then treat it. For Tree of Heaven, this typically isn't as recommended, because if you do that, what people have found is that while you can kill that one individual tree, it's not going to kill all of the many, many other shoots that are all connected to it through its root system. It's going to be less likely to move the herbicide into those as well. So perhaps for Tree of Heaven, look at some other approaches that are going to carry the work that you're doing further and kill more Tree of Heaven. So after any initial management, follow-up visits are going to be needed to ensure that the treated trees die over, a course of several seasons. You want to make sure that it was effective and those trees are dead, and if not, follow up, and that new seedlings don't establish. So here you can see these new seedlings on the forest floor just getting started. So check for those new seedlings after you do management, but also be on the lookout for them anytime. New seedlings can come in, especially after a disturbance occurs, and that's going to be a time where you could pull those up or use a foliar herbicide spray. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me and learning a little bit more about Tree of Heaven. This is an invasive plant that is very problematic already across the state and definitely seems to be increasing. So keep your eyes peeled for this and manage it early so that you don't have to be dealing with its problems down the road. Take a note from our great woodland steward that we heard about earlier, and prioritize looking for and managing Tree of Heaven in your woods.
Awesome. That was one thing that I'm glad you showed the walnut, because a lot of people do get it mixed up with walnut, so that's why I was like, it could have a little disguise there.
Yeah, sorry about the sound. Hopefully it panned out there in the end.
It did. We got most of it. It was just kind of in and out a little bit. But yeah, but thank you for putting that together and sharing this. And it was kind of neat that it did kind of link up with the Ramey video as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Dr. Crocker, you're going to be with us as part of our Woodland Owner Short course coming up. So as folks are have signed up for that and they're participating, you'll get to meet Dr. Crocker in person out there talking about forest health and all the great work her Forest Health Lab does. So appreciate
I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
So one question I did have is that, so we don't want the spotted lanternfly to take care of the tree of heaven, right?
No, because it doesn't take care of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It likes to feed on it, but it will also feed on all sorts of other things. So if it just stayed on the tree of heaven, if that was all it fed on, by all means, let them just duke it out and we'll see what happens. But it does not stay put on tree of heaven. Now it does really like tree of heaven. It's unclear, but it was thought to be essential to its life cycle. It clearly are from the same native range. They grew up together, you could say. And especially those younger nymphs really like the tree of heaven, but then it will move on to all sorts of other things. So while spotted lanternfly, from everything that I've read, is unlikely to be a serious health threat in our woods, our trees are probably going to be okay, but it's going to be a nuisance in landscape settings and home and urban landscapes, and it's going to be a major issue for orchards and vineyards. And there has been some work that suggests that the more tree of heaven you have in a place, the quicker those spotted lanternfly infestations ramp up and the bigger they are. So
Good
if you can
incentive to
manage it on the front end, not only can you be doing your woods some good by managing the tree of heaven, but you also might be helping with the spotted lanternfly situation down the road.
just a reminder, this is a community we all live in, right?
Right.
And what
Exactly.
we do impacts other things. So yeah, really good stuff,
Yeah,
Dr.
really
Crocker,
good.
as always. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and hope to see everyone at the Woodland Owner Short Course soon.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, and
Thank
hope
you.
you and your family have a great Independence Day.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Very good.
All right. So
Very cool.
go recap, go
Okay.
get a stewardship plan.
Yes, yes.
And then make sure you don't have any invasive species, especially tree of heaven. Otherwise, you're going to get another
And
bug.
if you do get a plan to
You
take
take
care
care
of
of
them.
'em.
And as we heard from the video, the Natural Resources Conservation Service has programs available to help compensate you for that work as
Right.
well. So if that's a
It's
thing,
not all have to be you. You
exactly.
can get help.
There's a lot of support, and they do that because we all benefit when landowners take care of their property.
Right, right. So, we really appreciate you joining us, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing this.
Exactly.
So, we greatly appreciate it. And, give us show ideas. You can go to fromthewoodstoday.com and give us ideas, like if something that you're seeing in your woods, we don't want another bug, but you never know.
Yeah.
It may be something that you're like, I don't know what this is. And we're like, ooh, we don't know either. So let's go find out, so it could be beneficial.
It really could. And we're actually working on a couple of show ideal topics that came in.
We are.
Identifying some speakers for those. So
We are.
keep those coming. We do have that survey available at fromthewoodstoday.com. You can click that. You can give us your show ideals. Send us a picture if you've seen something in your woods that you're not sure of. That'd be great as well.
Binge watch.
Let us know what you think about the show or how we can make it better. Again, it's meant to be a service to those who care and own the woodlands care for and own the woodlands of Kentucky. So we want to support you where we can.
Definitely. So until then, have a wonderful 4th of July, and we will see you next week.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
From the woods today.